Hi again everyone. It's been a while again, so sorry about that. It's now December and we're coming up to Christmas. It's a lovely rainy day here in Sydney. I'd like to make this video about one of the trips I took in October, which was my first solo international trip, and I actually went to Iran. Now this was an aviation tour organized by the very popular Sam Choi. He's a well-known aviation photographer, and he put this tour together to allow other aviation enthusiasts to experience just some really classic aircraft that are still operating in Iran due to the sanctions that have been placed on them. So this was a really good opportunity. I'd been in contact with Sam for some time about this tour. He had originally planned to do it earlier in the year around Easter, but due to a lack of interest wasn't able to put that together. He then rescheduled, made another tour for the October timeframe, and I just figured that this was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and yeah, so I just decided to go for it, and it just turned out that this trip would take place within a week of us, Eleanor and I, departing for South America on another trip. So I had quite a hectic few weeks of traveling, but in any case, you'll have to excuse me, as this was an aviation tour. I'm probably going to be talking about planes quite a bit, but we did get to do some really good sightseeing. So the original options involved either a departure out of Beijing, which was the full tour, and the other option was a departure from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Now, being located in Sydney, obviously the Kuala Lumpur departure was a little bit more convenient, but it did mean that we missed just a little bit of the tour. So unfortunately I didn't get to go to Shiraz. I flew with low-cost carrier AirAsia X from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur. I was quite impressed with them. The flight wasn't that full on the way out, so I had an entire row of 3 seats to myself, and the service on that airline was exceptional. Due to the flight connections from them to Iran Air at Kuala Lumpur, I stayed at a cheap hotel at the airport and boarded my Iran Air flight the following day. Now, Iran Air flight from Kuala Lumpur to Tehran is aboard the last passenger flying 747 SP, that's a special performance model. This particular aircraft is about 38 years old and is a shortened version of the famous jumbo jet. Basically, it was done so that the aircraft could have a longer range for you know, some of the flights that were required back in the time. Obviously, nowadays, engine efficiency and all that means that we don't need that. But nevertheless, this is a rare example of the 747, and I was super excited to get on this. The aircraft had been in maintenance for quite some time prior to our trip, so it didn't look like we were going to get it. And suddenly they put it into service. So this was a great experience. I'd optioned up to fly business class just for the heck of it, and so that meant that on this particular flight I was seated in seat 1K, which was the first row on the right side, and technically that meant I was actually sitting in front of the cockpit on the upper deck, just because of how the 747 is designed. So that was just an amazing opportunity. The service by Iran Air was fantastic. I mean, the food just kept coming, and this was a daytime flight, so it was just an amazing experience, really. Cabin crew were great. We all got to visit the cockpit, and we were up over Hyderabad in India during our visit, and the pilots were more than happy to show us what they were doing, what they were all about, correcting courses. We were dodging some cloud at the time, and just seeing this amazing classic cockpit with dials and gauges everywhere, a flight engineer sitting at the back. I mean, you know, this was what the tour was all about, and it was just such a great start, and we hadn't even landed in Iran yet. Iran itself was also an amazing place. I was just so surprised. We'd been told by Sam prior to arrival that the people there were friendly, and you know, everything was safe, and that. But you always have a bit of doubt. But while Tehran was, I would say, chaotic traffic-wise, and everyone seemed to drive Peugeots, the people there were friendly. I never felt intimidated or unsafe at all. It was just a wonderful experience, really. I mean, you know, the people were just amazing. So that was the first couple of days of my trip. After that, we joined the rest of the tour group the following day, and we got to visit the popular town of Isfahan. And whilst we were there, this was our sightseeing time of the day. So we flew down with, I think it's Quesham Air. I'm not entirely sure on the pronunciation. And of course, this was part of the aviation experience. And whilst we were in Isfahan, we got to visit the Abbasi Hotel for breakfast, and I believe this is quite a popular hotel. Absolutely beautiful inside. Just the intricacies of the artworks and the ceilings and all the touches was amazing. And then there was this beautiful garden that we got to check out as well. So yeah, another great experience, and this was just the morning. Following that, we went to the Jame Mosque, which had a massive square, and again, it was another beautiful place, Islamic architecture and all that. It was great, but we were told we would actually see a much larger square later in the day. The day was starting to get hot, but as we went along, we went to the Kaju Bridge, and this is quite a unique bridge. It has over 30 arches, or maybe even more. And there were locals were singing in there because the acoustics were quite good. It provided some interesting photos. We also visited an Armenian church, which had these beautiful paintings around the inside, which basically told stories from the Bible, from the Christian Bible, and these were quite good. A quick visit to some of the museums and stuff around there. It was whilst we were in Isfahan that we realised. We got a taste for how friendly the Iranian culture was. Some of the European people on the tour were being approached by locals who would ask to pose for pictures with them, ask where we were from, and they just seemed genuinely happy that foreigners had taken an interest in their country. You know, and in the markets and stuff, they were all very happy to do business with us, and you know, obviously, and yeah, no, it was very interesting, but like I said, not an intimidating experience, especially compared to other countries that we visited, Egypt and even, you know, Southeast Asia and stuff. There's sometimes can be that feeling that you don't feel 100% safe, or you're watching your stuff. Just was not a problem in Iran. Later in the day in Isfahan, we visited Imam Square, and this is one of the largest city squares in the world. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site as well. And I mean, it was just massive. We had a few hours spare time, and we couldn't see it all. And there's a number of mosques set up around the square, and so these were all really interesting to visit and learn about as well. To finish off the day, we went to a tea house where some of us got involved with some shisha and just hanging out with the locals. So that was a fun experience before flying back. And it was a late flight back, and I think we maybe had 3 hours sleep before we had to get up again for our next adventure. Which from here on, it was all aviation related again, being the nature of the tour. So the following day, I was in for several treats. I think this was the day. I got to fly on a Russian Antonov 74, which is probably one of the strangest jets you're likely to see. And this was running a passenger service and the aircraft basically has maybe 4 windows in the whole plane. So my window seat of 6A, I was up against a wall. I mean, these planes were designed for cargo, and yet here they were. Puya Air was operating them on a passenger service between Tehran and Mashhad, and apparently Mashhad is the second busiest city in Iran, and they're basically operating flights every 30 minutes. So that was an experience. We flew to Mashhad, got off the plane, checked in once again, and got back on the plane for a return to Tehran. During the afternoon, we visited the Tehran Aviation Museum. This was again a great place to visit because the aircraft on display you just wouldn't see in these parts of the world, and we were treated by the fact that there were 2 Lockheed L-1011 TriStars in the museum, and one of them was being used for a movie shoot for a TV series. I believe it's called Kimia. And while we were all a bit, oh, we can't get on board, they actually invited our tour group on board the aircraft to participate as extras. So that was another experience to see the interesting seating layout of the TriStar, and some even got to visit the cockpit. That just wasn't on the itinerary at the start, and so I'm quite happy with that. There were also some old 747 aircraft from Iran Air Cargo, and some 727-100s. So they were in a VIP layout, and again, to be able to board a 727 was just great, especially the 100 series. So there were a lot of classic aircraft here. Really loved the tour. I could have stayed there a lot longer, even in the heat. And following that, we had a nice hearty lunch, one of the best lamb kebabs I've ever had. And I mean, they just pile the food on in Iran. We didn't go hungry, that's for sure. That night we had another scheduled flight. Now this was with Mahan Air, which is, I would suppose, is Iran's second largest airline, and I believe it's privately owned. We were expecting to fly in a 747-300, which is a classic design again, and a lot of people were quite excited about that. Unfortunately, that aircraft went tech, so needed an engine replacement. So instead we were placed on an A300, which is Airbus's, was the first Airbus aircraft to enter service back in the late 70s. Now, I've flown on a 747-300, so I wasn't too bothered, but I have not flown on an A300, so that was great. And I had a business class ticket on the way out and an economy class on the way back to Tehran. And it was quite funny when one of the stewardesses recognized us and said on the return flight that this is not as good. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, you were in business class on the way up. So it was interesting. I mean, obviously being foreign, they all recognized us, but again, it was a fun experience. I really enjoyed that and got to tick another aircraft type off my list. So this was a particularly good day. On our last day touring, we took a flight on a 727, and one of the last 727s in passenger service. This was an amazing experience. I got to sit down the back on one of the legs. The sound of those three engines powering up was just phenomenal. Again, just to be able to say that I've now flown on a classic 727 I'm very happy. Later that day we visited Iran Air's headquarters in Tehran at Mehrabad Airport, and that again was a great experience. We got to go aboard their last passenger 747-200 that was in service and was having an engine replaced. We got to check out some of the A300s that were in maintenance, Fokker 100s, all their aircraft, and really get up close and see everything. And again, thanks to the Iran Air staff, we got to meet their check captain for the 747s, and he was more than happy to answer questions to our group. Yeah. This is an AvGeeks dream trip. Following that, it was time to leave, so we took the 747 SP from Tehran back to Kuala Lumpur, and some of them would then take one back to Beijing. In KL, I had a day to myself, so I was able to explore, go to the Petronas Towers and enjoy myself, unwind before flying back to Sydney. But I mean, really, I think you can gather, I had an amazing time. This was my first trip on my own overseas, and it was a great experience. Thanks to Sam Choi for putting it on. Thanks to everyone who was on the trip. He made it such an amazing adventure, and I made some new friends and connections out of it. And I mean, all the experiences are great, and I have this, and I got this T-shirt as well. I mean, what more could you ask for? Look, if anyone is thinking of going to Iran, it's an amazing place, and at the moment, before the sanctions are lifted, it's not quite touristy yet. I know Sam is planning this tour again in early 2016, so if anyone is interested, get on it. Go to Sam Choi's website and have a look. Seriously, if you love aviation, you will not regret it. And I mean, this was sort of a test for me to see how I would go and if I would like this sort of trip. And yeah, it's just it was great. So I've now time to save up some money and try and get onto one of the North Korean aviation tours and fly in some of those Russian jets, because yeah, I think that'll be an amazing experience. And some of the people on this tour did tell me that, who have done the North Korean trip, that it is amazing. So, and you know, I guess another thing now is that I have that experience. I have had the experience of traveling to a country that not many people have visited. So you know, it gives you something that you can talk about, and it was a very positive experience. I truly enjoyed Iran and the people there. So thank you, Sam, for opening my eyes to a part of the world that I guess a lot of people, especially when I have spoken to people about it, a lot of people have, I guess, this perception that I guess Western media may have painted for us, and it's not accurate. So yeah, that's and this just furthers the point that travel is so enriching. So yeah, anyway, I'll stop rambling. I've got plenty more to talk about, and I might, there could be some more videos coming up pretty soon. There's just a couple of things that I'm working on, so look out for those. Obviously there was the bigger trip that we did for this year with my wife and I went to South America. So I'll try and review that one soon. It's just a matter of going through all the photos, and yeah, so look out for that. Not sure when they're going to get up, so being that it is the 22nd of December today, or as I'm recording this, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and yeah, we'll see if I get a video up before New Year, but if not, have a Happy New Year as well. Enjoy your celebrations, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye.